nights in a row. And then she says, well, actually, well, you've not touched me for 3 nights. I feel like you don't even want me no more. You're being entitled. What's wrong with you? You're being entitled. You know what I'm saying? It's my body, right? We would never say that. We would say, well, we can understand why she feels that way. Because you've rejected her for the last 3 nights. Why would we say that? Because we understand. So what I'm saying is, before we run to the entitlement, I'm not saying it can't be that, by the way. I want to say, to be fair, especially with the condom conversation, I want to mention that again. I can understand that, but I also can understand the other aspect as well. And in that conversation, can I be honest with you? It's probably one of the best conversations I've seen from a man address an issue. He did not try to run her into the ground. He did not try to force her into a perspective. He was actually trying to have a conversation. And that's one of the hardest conversations to technically have. And we're still throwing the book at him going, he's entitled. When he said, listen, can I be honest with you? If now you have a situation, Sean, when you're not married, and your wife was giving it to you every single night, back to back to back to back to back to back, and then you get home and suddenly she's like, don't touch me. Are you not going to have a question in your head like, wait, is something not quite right here? Maybe something's not quite right here. Maybe, and would you not start thinking in your brain, maybe I need to think about this. Maybe I'm not in the right space or the right place to be. And also, he has his own fears. We're not even giving him space to have his own fears. We are running to entitlement without giving him space to be like, maybe he also has fears at the same time. Maybe he's also feeling like, whoa, actually, at the same time, that you're having your thing, I'm also having my thing. So this is where we have to hold space for both of them to be able to say, these are my needs, and not crucify any person or judge them when they're saying what their needs are. Now, she let him know, she said about the PMS, but he said it wasn't about the PMS. It was about the 3 other situations that when I tried to do something with you, you rejected me. And now I'm starting to feel rejected. So that's all I'm pushing back. I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way, Sean. I'm saying that I'm pushing back on that again, just to kind of level it. So that's a real conversation now. I already hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, no, I want to. 1 second, Phil. Okay. So I do understand what you're saying. But I just, where my pushback comes in is from, and this is why I use certain words about decentering, because that's what happens. You have to take yourself out of the equation, especially when it's not about communication, but he wants access to her body. So he wants access to her as a vehicle to make himself feel better. And then he is upset or internalizing it that she is saying no in that moment. Right. So that's where he has to then step out of himself and stop. There's a point, especially you're in a marriage, you have to put your spouse's feelings first in a lot of different instances. And I think he's missing the mark because he's feeling like, oh, if I want to touch her, she should be open to it. Right. Despite what's going on, whether it's PMS, she also, from what I understand, I see the chat talking about she might have an autoimmune issue. So all those things are at play. And remember, when he expressed to her too in that conversation, and this is what I picked up on, is he was like, well, it happened a few other times. She said, yeah, because I see that as petting, right? So that means she didn't like the way it felt. He wanted it, but it didn't feel good to her. But he's still asserting his dominance. And I get it. We want to have parity amongst the sexes, but men and women are very different, right? So patriarchy benefits men. So yeah, men, we're going to have to bite the bullet on some things and bite the bullet on our feelings to get more parity and to allow our women to come up to the privilege that we have as men. So that's going to mean some self-sacrifice. And the reason I'm a little harder on Ramses is because he has put himself on the forefront as somebody that has a modern way of thinking, a modern way of doing things. He's against toxic masculinity. So if he's truly that way and done that work, his approach to her in these situations are going to be different. So that's why I'm putting a little bit more weight on expecting him to show up differently than what we would expect a different guy. So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to push back on you, Kojo. I kind of agree with Sean. I think Ramses is a good communicator, but the other part of being a good communicator is also being a good listener. And he's not listening to what she's actually saying to him. And they've only been together for 2 weeks. So if we're going to keep it real, let's keep it all the way real. We're on vacation in Mexico. Vacation sex versus at-home sex is 2 different sex. I'm giving you the show on vacation every day, all day, because we partying, having a good time. But once we get back to real life, and when she mentioned, because I live in the DC area, The 2-hour commute, that's a lot on a person. And me not wanting to be affectionate with you a couple of times doesn't mean like I don't like you. I think he's taking it to the extreme because he's only thinking about himself and his needs, and he's not really listening to Merissa and what she's saying.
I also wanted to add that just a different angle. I'm not saying that Merissa did this, but since we're on the discussion, and I know Phil mentioned that she has some pick-me characteristics, sometimes as women, we got to be real careful that we don't even feed into the having sex just to please a man or having it sacrificial, because a lot of times when you do that, they start to lean into that sense of entitlement, and then you start setting a pattern or setting you start setting yourself up for something that you can't continue. And I think I can't say it 100% because I don't know. I know she's very attracted to him, but she really gives that she was going above and beyond at some points to try to please him or to try to keep up with him. And I think Merissa, in a lot of aspects of her life, is doing stuff that maybe she ain't got the bandwidth to continue. And so that's not to say that, I agree with Kojo. I hear Kojo. I'm not saying I agree 100%. Even though I do think, you should always hold space for people's feelings. But I think I think he's been centered. Let me just be clear. Ramses has been centered by women his entire life. It feels. It seems like people around him have allowed him to be centered his entire life. So I really wasn't surprised that he had that conversation, because I think he's used to getting what he wants at all times. And that's why Sean was saying what he was saying, is like, men at some point need to understand that if you're actually trying to marry somebody and you're trying to have a wife, you as a man, you can't be putting yourself first all the time. You need to think about your partner. But I fear that Ramses is not used to that dynamic. And unfortunately, Merissa was trying to keep up with something that she probably can't keep up with. And then here we go. So that's what I think.
Listen, I definitely hear you. I think we're agreeing more than we are disagreeing, I guess, a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm just saying let's hold space, because it doesn't sound like we're holding space. What we're doing is like, he has to understand, and she has to understand too. That's the whole point of a relationship. We have to both understand each other, and we come to a negotiation, or we come to a negotiation. We negotiate at the table to say, hey, we need to relook at this, right? You want sex 7 days a week. I can't keep up. I can't lie to you. I got 5 days in me, 4 days in me. It's a negotiation, because that conversation was actually that conversation for me personally, maybe I have to watch it again, was actually quite a mature conversation. He did not force it on her. He did not try to say, you have to have sex with me. He didn't say any of those kind of things. He was saying, listen, in the reality of the situation, what I'm seeing is that something shifted and changed. And now I'm starting to feel rejected. Now, he didn't say all the rejecting part, because she actually had to ask him. And he kind of was like, yeah, I am. Because he wasn't fully being honest about how he actually felt. Which is why I saw two people in that conversation not being honest. Right? Because if you started off at 100 miles per hour and you drop to 50, people are going to ask a question. If I come at a certain level and I'm always doing this for you all the time and I drop it, you telling me you're going to ask me a question, be like, what's going on? Is something different? Has something changed? It's natural people are going to ask that question. Now, if you had been forcing it, like the condom conversation, I would have rocked with y'all. I can't lie to you. I really would have rocked with you guys. You know what I'm saying to you? But I'm just saying to you, I hope we hold the same energy. If a man goes, well, I was working hard, I was busy, and wifey, I'm sorry, sex is not on my mind. I want to go to bed. And when she says, well, I wanted sex with you. Hey. You have to understand, when I'm working hard, sex is not on my mind. I'm only thinking about money and making money. We would still have the same conversation. We'd be like, that man needs to take care of his wife. He should not leave her starved like that. He should not. And it's like, that's not how it should be. It should be it should be able to hold space on both sides. That is a very difficult conversation when it comes to sex and intimacy. And when somebody wants intimacy, how do we have a conversation? Doesn't mean you're entitled. No, I want intimacy. So I'm going to ask for more intimacy. It's not entitled to ask for more. If you're talking to me and I feel like you're not talking enough to me, and I say I want more of your conversation, and I feel rejected because you're not talking to me as much, am I being entitled? No. I'm saying I want more. There is nothing wrong with asking for more. You now got to tell me, hey, I can't do more. There's nothing entitled about that. If we put people in relationships and say you're entitled when you do that, then nobody actually really grows. There's going to be times where it's going to be ebbs and flows. So right now, she can just say to him, listen, I can't lie to you. 2-hour commute. I'm PMSing and da-da-da. I know you want more sex and I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? The sex is amazing, it's great. But right now, I'm just not in that space for it. I need to be able to shift. Because he was also feeling scared. That is a key point that I think none of you have picked up. Nobody has seen that point. Nobody has seen the point that he was scared. We're just going, he's entitled. And this is actually one of the reasons why when men are coming into coaching and therapy, they run away. Because we don't hold space for both parties. We go, it's only her that has to, only her that's, oh, we can see her point of view. But the guy was scared. This is why he's in the position he is.
Kojo, I actually love that you said that because I picked up on his fear. But can I take it one step further? I think Ramses was scared, and somebody said in here he's fearful, avoidant. I can't remember. He is afraid, but he's one of those people who's afraid because he really wants you to want him, but he still don't want her, Kojo. You know what I mean? Like, he wants to know that you locked in, but he's not locked in. I did sense what you're saying because when she was pulling away, that's why he didn't let her go to the bathroom. It wasn't necessarily because he was trying to control her like in a devious way. It was more so like he needed the reassurance so bad. But the whole time I'm looking at it, I'm like, this man wants to know so bad that Merissa is locked in. He's so afraid that she's not locked in. But the crazy part is I know for a fact he's saying no at that altar. So I don't know how to reconcile that. I mean, maybe you do, Kojo, but it's crazy to me. Because I did see the fear, but I don't think that translates into him wanting her, though, or him willing to open himself up enough, I should say, for the risk to be with her.
Yeah, I think it's, and I think that's why I keep going back to decentering, because that means you separate your needs in this moment. And I think he did tell her what he wanted, and she said no. So my objection is not with him asking. My objection is with him not accepting her answer with detail. She explained everything.
Where did he not accept? Sorry, just to say that. I'm not going to interrupt you. Go for it. What did he not accept?
Because he said, this is what makes me think, is this what our marriage is going to be like? And then
so how's that not accepting?
Because he's saying, like, she told him how she felt. She said, hey, listen, not now. Fill in the blanks for whatever reason it was. And then he said, well, now I'm just getting I'm having doubts. I'm having questions because I don't know if the rest of our marriage is going to look like this. So for me in that moment, hearing that is him centering his needs around the sexual intimacy that he needs from her and expecting her to do exactly what she did all the time. And that to me is where it's like you can't put that expectation on somebody because at the end of the day, your needs, your desires for sex are going to ebb and flow. So what I heard is he wanted that honeymoon experience to play out throughout the rest of their interactions together. And that's not how intimacy works. You can't put somebody in a box like that and expect them to perform because that's what you need for your needs to feel secure. So I think he was missing that point, in my opinion.
But you see, I think it's quite interesting because we're saying that he didn't actually accept her point, but he did accept her point. The whole point is that he gave his point. You see, again, and this is why I'm saying I'm being very careful, right? Because I will do the same thing as a woman. To state what you want is not invalidating how you feel or what you want, right? If I state how I want something and you state what you want, we are now at a loggerhead. We now need to negotiate. There is nothing wrong with that. There are going to be times, like you said, ebbs and flows. I don't have to understand that at the immediate moment because my needs are, this is what my needs are. When I come to the table, I present them. And then you present what you want on the table. Then we might need to negotiate. But what you're saying is just accept it. And that is not what we need to be doing. I don't need to just accept it. I need to have a conversation first and foremost. I need to get my point of view across over, and then we can see if we can negotiate. Because it may be a case of maybe I'm doing something that can actually encourage you to want to have sex more. It may be a case of something that I'm doing that's turning you off a little bit. That is why the negotiation at the table happens. If you penalize the person for even asking, they're not going to ask again. And what ends up happening is a person going to emotionally drift from the relationship. So whether we think like he wants to commit or not commit, I would say that we can say that too. I don't really mind which side you fall on. But the reality of the situation is, in a conversation with your partner, you are going to negotiate when you have two different ideas on something. You're not just going to cave in. The moment you start saying, I'm just going to cave in, it's the moment you're going to have more trouble. Because we're actually saying the exact same thing about Merissa, that she just caved in. Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? So she needs to come to the table and actually say what she wants and say, listen, this is what I really want. Like, and him saying, oh, I am scared. Because I'm thinking to myself, is this going to be the kind of marriage I'm going to be in? Yes. The same way if a woman was to say to you, if you don't pay no bills, is this the kind of marriage I want to be in? I wonder. Is she now trying to manipulate him? No, she's telling her fear of what the situation is. And what it requires is further discussion to unearth more. Why do you have that fear? Which she actually did a really good thing. Merissa did a really good thing. She asked him, do you feel rejected? And this is where he could have done a little bit better. He kind of said yes, but he didn't go all the way in. And that's where he should have been like, yes, I do feel rejected. When I've tried to touch you 3 times, and I know we keep saying it's only 3 times. I love that you guys keep saying it's only 3 times, but you all know how you feel if your partner rejected you 3 times. So stop pretending. I really think it's just nonsense when we do that. It's nonsense. You know how you feel if your partner, if you came up to your partner on 3 separate occasions, tried to touch them, and they rejected you. You'd want to know what happened. So all it is about is having further discussion. It is not about warfare. It's about more discussion to unearth more of the latent needs. What's really behind that? Ramses, why are you so intent on the sex situation? Is there more to that situation? Because I'm going to be honest with you right now, I'm just not in that space. So is there more to it so I can understand where you're coming from? There is nothing wrong with him saying he has a fear behind the fact that the marriage could be sexless. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think we are demonizing him when we do that. When people are saying what their actual needs are, when they're not saying you can't have your needs. Now the condom situation, we are in the same league. That was diabolical. Okay, we are in the same league, diabolical. But in this conversation, I wouldn't say that. I don't know if Elson wants to add before anyone else jumps in again.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the conversation is what has changed. And I don't think he was villainizing her about it. It's kind of like trying to understand. I need to be able to navigate in our relationship. So, okay, if it's, that time, then I know how to navigate that. But as he said, there were other occasions where his touch was not acceptable. And the one thing we know, and we would like men to do, is ask why their touch is not acceptable. Because the thing is, to just say, I don't want you to touch me, doesn't help navigate the situation. So he's trying to understand so he doesn't either trigger her or he's trying to kind of push her in a direction she does not want to do. Now, his love language, I'm thinking, because she said it's overstimulating, he's always touching her. He always has like his hand or touching her finger. He seems to be someone who needs the physical grounding. So she said it's overstimulating. So now you're telling me I can't even touch your hand. So now that's telling me a further rejection. How far do you want me to be away from you? How far do you want us to be separated by the touch? That's what I got from Ramses. Is like, I need to know so that I'm not inadvertently hurting you by giving you too much touch or too much overstimulation. And it's a conversation you need to have, because as Phil said, the vacation stuff, we going off. Honeymoon stage, we going off. At some point, we're going to cool off and the pot needs to stop boiling. And we need to know how to handle it when it's cooling down. Now, is it cooling down to stop, or is it cooling down because we no longer into each other? So that's where I got Ramses. I need to understand what your needs are so that also my needs could either be fulfilled or I could put them on a shelf.
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not going to say that he needs to be villainized for his stance or his needs. I'm not going to speak to all women because I can't do that. But I think most grown women who have hormones, who are tired, a lot of times we could tend to be more tired, who we have just a lot of needs outside of that. Really, just Ramses is not going to work for most women. And I just think and maybe that's what Sean is also speaking to about the decentering. if those are his needs, then I just think that most women need to be honest that when we're really looking for husbands, we're looking for husbands that, you know, yes, can voice their concerns, but that at the end of the day, your health, your stability, you know, the needs of the wife is first and foremost. I mean, I just think that's what women look for. They don't look for men like Ramses. I mean, I'm just being honest. And I understand that he should be able to express his needs, and he has his love languages, and he has the things that he needs. But women go through so much. We really do. We go through a whole lot. And I think that conversation was really triggering. I know for me, because I just think about so many things in life that we go through that just makes us not feel up to doing it. Sometimes we don't even feel attached to our bodies. I mean, there's just a list of things that can go on. And I think it's very daunting to have a man who, when you tell him that, that's kind of what he says. Again, I'm not saying that he doesn't have that right. I'm just saying, like, that is really, oh my gosh, I'm gonna ignore the comments. Because I just think so many men, if they knew what women go through, they just wouldn't say the things that they say, to be honest. But I just think that is it's just kind of hard to hear. And so, yeah, like KS said in the chat, the drive's got to match. And that's why I said earlier, for Merissa, right? Do your best not to set yourself up for maybe something that you can't maintain. And I think there are women that will match with Ramses, I'm sure. But I would say the majority of the women need to take time off from time to time. They may take a week off. They may take days off, depending on what you're going through. And you really need to find a man that's understanding of that and can adapt to that. And that's not all men. That's not all men. And maybe that's not him. So.
And that's why conversation is important. Right? Why you expect me to understand it and we're not having that conversation and digging deeper? Right? This is the whole point of conversation needs to end up happening. And that's why I said that the conversation won't happen, because what we're saying is, and you kind of said it, Seaway, you just need to understand how I feel. No, it doesn't work like that. We both need to understand how we feel. It does not mean that my action is going to be what we're going to take on board, which is why I don't understand how we're missing each other. They both need to hear each other. Needs, okay, doesn't mean that we're going to have to do my needs. Just him saying how he feels does not mean that you have to take his action on board. It means this is how I feel. And if we can't have a safe space where both people can say how they feel, you are going to lose that person, man or woman, right? She needs a safe space to be able to say, listen, I'm PMSing right now, and I can't lie to you. I know the last few days, whatever, the sex has not been on. I need you to understand that. And then he has to come round to that thinking and come to that place and try to understand it. And she also needs to understand too that when you are rejecting somebody a couple of times in between that space, which is not just that moment, in other sessions, that person may feel some sense of rejection. And then we start working together. How can we make sure that both of us are not feeling this type of way? Because we're talking about a woman needs to understand, a man needs to understand. I'm saying to you, they both got holes in their heart. They're both wounded. This is the whole point. So if we only say one person's thing is valid, right? How do we get to that place? Because obviously in the comment section is, he just needs to understand. Well,
but that's
why
not
would
what
you
I
expect
said,
him to?
Kojo.
I'm not saying you did.
You.
I said the comments in the comment
Okay.
section. I said specifically. But I'm saying that specifically.
Now you're talking to me like Tim.
You know what? I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah, I think
the soft voice talking to me like Tim.
Yeah.
Let me shut up before you say you never want to see
let me mute myself too, Seaway. When you sit on the bench, I need to sit on the bench. Let me mute myself too. Let Sean jump.
Yeah,
let me mute myself.
Unfortunately, I disagree with you, Kojo, on that. I think on this one, he has to sit this one out. And that's what decentering yourself means. It's not easy, but it means take yourself out of the equation and elevate your woman, because in this instance, men and women are very different. Men and women's, the fact that women get sexually assaulted at a 20,000